Hey YouTube, it's Emma Blue Eyes 10 here with a kind of thoughts slash mini rant video on deck styles and competitiveness and everything, because I've been having a lot of people in private messages and comments asking me about or saying things like you know, you say your Blue Eyes deck and everything's competitive, but it's not really because it's not running this card, it's not running that card, or people saying, you know, your deck's a fun deck, it's not a competitive deck and everything. Now, this is not aimed at anybody at all. This is just a response to everybody and to explain my feelings on the situation. And I do hope you guys enjoy. And I do apologise if I do say anything offensive to anybody. I really do. I'll try not to. But as I said, this is just a thoughts video on deck styles and their competitiveness, really. Okay, so let's get started, shall we? Okay then. Right, as you know, there are thousands and thousands of different deck styles in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! They range from one end of the scale, which is just fun, you know, everybody plays for fun, to, of course, the other end of the scale, which is competitiveness, you know, the style of tier 1, tier 0, tier 2 and everything. And, you know, everybody's got different decks that fit within the range. You know, I don't think there's one set label or level of competitiveness and fun. There's many different levels and styles that decks can fit into, and I consider my deck to be sort of in the middle. It's competitive because it can keep up with meta decks, but it's also fun because obviously of the Blue Eyes element and the Blue Eyes shining and everything, and that I enjoy my duels as well as trying to do my best in duels and everything all the time. So I don't understand why people are saying, you know, what the main argument people have been saying about really is that I say my deck is competitive, and it is competitive because it's got quite good strategy, it's got quite good meta cards and staple deck cards and everything. It can keep up with meta decks and everything, right? And yet some people are saying it's not competitive because I don't run Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. And they're trying to use the argument that I say Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon is used in most competitive decks, but I'm being contradictory to myself because I don't run it myself, if you see what I mean. Yes, really confusing a little bit, but the thing is, with dragon decks, right, especially Blue Eyes, you know how there's Hopeless Blue Eyes, Disaster Blue Eyes, Chaos Blue Eyes Sworn, or just any type of competitive dragon deck that runs Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. That's not the only style of competitive dragon deck there is. Okay, there's other styles of dragon decks that are competitive that I feel they don't need Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. They don't need to use Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. It's a cool card, I keep saying that, I agree it's a cool card, it's got an awesome effect. It's mainly used in all the competitive builds because it's an easy win card. It's a card that gets strategies going very easily, right? Now, my deck, obviously, as you know, has not got Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon in it. It's still competitive in the sense that, you know, I just want to be different. I don't want to follow the crowd, okay? So I've built my deck to be competitive in a completely different style from using Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, okay? So I don't understand why people are getting a bit nippy about it. You know, I mean, most of you guys, particularly Dr. Cyanide Necros and everything, you guys give me some really good advice on the deck and everything. You've pointed out problems, you've said your side of the arguments and all that, and I really do respect that, and I do really appreciate the help that has been given to me on the deck and everything, but I just don't understand why other people can't seem to understand that I want to run Blue Eyes Dragons in a completely different style of competitiveness, in opposed to running it the typical meta way, which most people say is use Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, because that is the main support card in most competitive dragon builds. But as I keep saying, there's not just like that one style of competitive dragon build, there's other styles, there's loads of styles. It's every deck. I mean, even wind-ups and sectors and all that, there's your typical meta build which nearly everybody will run, and then there's other builds which are still competitive but are different because the player wants to do it differently, you know, possibly to find other ways to win, possibly to find OTKs and FTKs. I mean, You know, everybody's deck is different. Everybody has their own playstyle. You know, it's the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't seem to have, from what I feel, especially with these kind of typical meta decks that are out now, the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't seem to have that kind of respect for somebody who wants to go a different route nowadays, if you see what I mean. Now, of course, you guys do respect the fact I've built my deck completely different, that I'm not following the crowd and everything, and that's always been me. That's just always been my style. I've always wanted to do things another way instead of going the easy way. I mean, I have tried building a Hopeless Dragon deck. It just doesn't work for me. I have tried it, I have tested it, it just doesn't work for me, which is why I'm not using it. But I respect others who do use it because they feel more comfortable with it, or they like it better. I mean, that's their choice, I respect that. So for the trolls and the nitpickers and that who constantly pick at my deck, you know, just back off and just respect the fact that I say my deck is competitive. It is competitive. I can do quite well at tournaments, but I've done a completely different style. I've gone off a completely different route, and that's the way I want to go. That's always been me. Even in life, I've always been the one to go off on tangents and everything, you know, because that's just the kind of person I am. I don't like to take everybody else's way unless I absolutely have no other choice, really. But you know, you could say this is also a kind of thoughts video about respect in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! And everything. I mean, I respect the fact that people do try to help me, and they suggest everything. They do suggest the typical kind of cards, you know, all the time. It's expected nowadays. I'm not as angry as I used to be a long time ago about people suggesting the same thing over. I mean, it's just because everybody knows most dragon decks are built that way, with Red Eyes Darkness Metal, Quackamayo Draco, Lad, for example, and Vigo Dragon, Future Fusion, all those typical kind of cards. Everybody's so used to seeing dragon decks built with those kind of cards, but when they see a competitive dragon deck built completely different, they're like, hang on, is that supposed to happen? Is this supposed to be, you know, real? And it's like, yeah, I'm trying to show, basically, to the world of Yu-Gi-Oh!, to you guys, that there are other ways of building competitive decks without going down the same route. I think that's what I'm trying to really say. Even with fun decks, you know, fun decks can start off with fun. Like, you know, typical, they play the theme of like all the characters or all the typical themed cards. But when they try to go into competitive play, obviously it can be a big shock to them. It can be quite scary sometimes, you know, how a competitive build can be so different from a fun build, and how it can sometimes utterly crush a fun build. I mean, I've been there, I've seen it happen, and even my little sister, Heavenly Guinea Pig, has felt that effect. She went with our fun Red Eyes Dragon deck to her first tournament. She got quite a shock at how competitive the tournament was, and I did warn her it was going to be a shock, but I went through it as well when I first went to Mad for Miniatures. I thought I was going to kick ass with my deck, and I ended up getting utterly crushed. So then I decided to start building Blue Eyes more competitively and able to keep up with meta decks, but still have its fun element with of course, Blue Eyes Shining Dragon. So yeah, I mean, there's a fun deck can easily become competitive. Obviously, my deck and other fun decks, or fun themed decks, or decks with elements of fun in them, obviously they cannot reach the top tier decks that are like tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, which I think are the most competitive decks. So that's things like Insectors, Wind-Ups, Dino Rabbit, Dark World, Six Samurai, you know, the usual. Obviously they can't go up to that kind of competitiveness all the time, but we can get to a level where we can be still competitive, we can still keep up with the meta decks, but we can still keep our fun element as well. Now, because obviously I'm not running Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, my deck style would probably never ever reach tier 2, 1, 0, never. And I don't care about that. I honestly don't care. With my deck, I play for fun, I play to do my absolute best. If I do really well in a tournament, then I'm like, oh yeah, I did really well, I actually got Blue Eyes Dragons this style that far, I'm very proud of myself for doing it. You know, sense of achievement, sense of a pride. And I do tend to lose quite a bit against wind-ups and insectors, and I've never gone up against Dino Rabbit, I have to admit, so I don't know how well I actually do against that. But yes, my deck can't really keep up with those most of the time, but on the few occasions I do beat those decks, you know, it's like, yeah, there you go, don't underestimate Blue Eyes and my style of deck, because it can actually do very well. Which, on a side note, I've actually made a couple of edited changes to the Blue Eyes Dragons deck. I'll need to do a video about that soon, but that's for another time. Okay. Anyway, guys, I think that's everything I want to talk about, really. As I said, this was a kind of thoughts video / mini rant. Again, it's not aimed at anybody. It's just a response to all the people who've been sending me comments and private messages about. Well, basically, it all started off on the card discussion video of Totem Dragon versus Red Eyes Darkness Metal and everything, and to some comments on my Blue Eyes Dragons video. So I hope this answers your questions. I mean, I respect every other duelist out there. You know, I respect your guys' decisions. If you want to do something that way, if you want to go off on a different tangent, if you want to run the deck your style, that's fine. As I said, it's your deck style. I'm not going to interfere with it. And I do respect the advice that is given to me. I really do. I do take it on board, but I would really appreciate it if you could just respect my decisions on how I build my deck and how I take in advice and everything, because, as I said, I just want to be completely different. I don't want to follow the crowd. I want to do things my way, if you see what I mean, and be unique in that way, if you see what I mean. Which I think it's a little bit of an element that's missing from the world of Yu-Gi-Oh, sadly, because unique decks, I mean, there are still unique decks and stuff out there, but I feel like people aren't really respecting that enough, and it's kind of sad to see that. But unfortunately, whenever you do have decks that do really well and are typical build, and somebody comes along with a unique style that doesn't do so well but it's still pretty good, people still don't respect it as much, unfortunately, which I think is a bit sad, because obviously it's the win-win-win factor, I think, really, that's been ingrained into people's minds. But I think that'll be a discussion for another time. Anyway, I'm sorry for rambling on about that. I hope you enjoyed that. I honestly mean no offence to anybody out there, and if I have, I'm really, really sorry for that. I've tried not to be offensive or anything, but I'm just giving you my thoughts, my personal views on this, of deck styles and their competitiveness levels and everything. I do hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!